Welcome to the Expansive Astrology Podcast, where we look at using astrology beyond the tropes and horoscopes to tune into the natural forces around us and within us, honoring our true nature to craft our future. I'm your host, Melissa, the Self-Care Witch, and I'm here to help you meet your magic. Without further ado, let's begin this week's episode with a tarot reading for the collective. Stay tuned for the end of the episode to learn how you can win a free tarot reading from me. Hi, welcome back. It's episode 23, and I'm excited to bring this episode to you. We are continuing our discussion on Libra energy and the invitations and the medicine of Libra energy and Libra season. And this week's topic is all about balance. One of the keywords for Libra season is balance. So this week we're going all the way in and examining many of the ways that balance exists in our lives and how we can use that theme to nurture and nourish our lives. But of course, first things first, the collective tarot reading. This is a 4-card spread for the collective energy. So stay open to seeing how these things may play out for you over the coming week. First up, we have the 6 of Swords, which I've had some bitter moments around the 6 of Swords. So the 6 of Swords is present for us this week and supported by that kind of in like a bigger picture background support kind of way is the Hierophant. So wow, what an interesting combo. I love that. And I love that when we're talking about balance later. Oh, okay. Let me tell you why I love it so much. First off, the 6 of Swords. Swords are like our brain, our thoughts, our beliefs, our brain chemistry, the stories that are going on in our head at any given point. And in the 6 of Swords, we're learning how to surrender to like a give and take relationship. The 6s all kind of like have us evaluating like the give and take that exists in life. And in the Pamela Coleman Smith illustration in the Rider-Waite pack, we see like 3 figures on a boat. 2 of them are like sitting in the boat, huddled, hunched over, kind of covered by blankets. And then the third being is standing behind them, rowing the boat, leading them. And in the front of the boat, we see 6 swords. And the illustration is important, of course, but it tells us, it can point out a few things. The first thing is that these beings who are being carried away, where they are from their vantage point, they cannot see past their swords. And the person rowing the boat, they can see past the swords. There's also this important symbolism that all of these 6 swords aren't weighing down the boat somehow, right? But there's a lot of swords going on, and yet it's not weighing down the boat. It's not stopping the movement that is happening in this card. So part of why this can be bitter, or what the medicine of this card invites us into, is allowing ourselves to be seen and supported. Which is difficult, right? It's hard to admit, like, I can't get out of this brain story. Sometimes we don't even know if we're stuck in a brain story because we're so stuck in it, right? And I know that sometimes when I talk about like our brain's stories and having a relationship with the brain and not necessarily believing everything the brain says, I know that some people are like, what the fuck does that mean? Because we are so identified with the brain, and like I really separate like the idea of the brain from the rest of the self. So for some, this practice of like realizing when we're stuck in the brain or when we need like some outside guidance or support in carrying us through some sort of brain experience, that can be hard to wrap your brain around. And I especially like always want to say that when it comes to my interpretations of the sword cards, because the brain is, we need the brain to interpret the cards and to receive the messages, right? And then when I'm telling you, I don't know, it gets complicated. Anyway, take what you need, leave the rest. In the Six of Swords, where this has been most bitter for me is, with my close relationships, with my intimate relationships, especially with my husband, where there have been times where maybe my brain's stories are related to him. And I especially don't want his help carrying me through that, right? I don't want to let him know what my brain is saying. And a part of what the swords teach us is that the brain isn't always right? It's teaching us how our brain operates, what its go-tos are. And it's Lindsay Mack who teaches this, that like the brain is like a predator. Its job is to keep us small and the same and contracted. And part of keeping like control over us, it kind of acts as a predator. And what predators do so expertly, I said do weird right there. I'm leaving that in. What predators do so expertly is isolate their prey, kind of attack them in their most vulnerable places and isolate them and keep them feeling weak and small and alone. So anytime your brain is saying like, don't let anybody know this, you need to be alone with this, you are weak for this, or like all those fucked up narratives that the brain uses to keep us feeling alone and small. The Suit of Swords helps us like navigate that tendency of the mind, of the brain. And it kind of gives us different tools to work with that, to move through that. And one of those tools is the Six of Swords. One of those tools is reaching out to somebody who can see outside of your swords and saying, hey, can you support me, please, somehow? So overall, what's present for us is an invitation to let ourselves be seen. Let ourselves be held. Let ourselves find support. And interestingly, that idea is supported by the Hierophant, which in a really brief nutshell invites us to honor our own inner knowing and to look to ourselves for the truth that we seek, to look to ourselves as our own wise teacher. So I am kind of giddy and obsessed with that combination of the Six of Swords and the Hierophant, where the Six of Swords, it almost feels like a surrender, like surrendering to somebody else. It's definitely an invitation to like get out of our mind or let other people in, let ourselves be supported. It doesn't have to be other people. Although we are social creatures, and being witnessed in our pain, being witnessed in our swords, being witnessed when we can't really hold ourselves up, being witnessed in that in a safe and supportive way is, I would argue, like necessary. It's so healing and so beautiful, and it's why I do the work that I do. And I feel so honored when I'm able to participate in that sort of experience, whether it's with my own counselor or my husband or my sister, anyway, and I don't know, Libra season is also about like relationships, right? And partnerships. So, and it doesn't have to be about other people, though I do want to encourage it. Either way, like that idea of letting yourself be in your swords and know that like there's a way to move through it and out of it, and know that like there is another perspective that you can take. And supported by the Hierophant, a reminder that you know what's best for you. You have a divine connection, like to your channel, to your guides, your ancestors, your intuition, that which is greater than you, whatever like resonates for you. Like you don't need to go to anyone else to know what is right for you. That just feels like such an important support with that Six of Swords message, right? Like in the Six of Swords, we're learning to be held and witnessed and kind of like carried if needed. And yet, like not with the Hierophant, we're remembering like not to give up our power to anyone else. We're reminded to trust ourselves like most. And also, in case you need to hear this, you might, we all kind of need this reminder sometimes, but there's also just like a warning with the Hierophant to like also know that we are human. We have biases. Our knowing can be influenced by our humanness, by our egos, by our biases. So just like, keeping that in check, right? But mostly trusting ourselves. Our lesson for the week is the Star, the nervous system healer of the tarot. The card that comes after the Tower, who meets us at ground zero, meets us in the aftermath of a difficult situation or some sort of transformation, and helps us, do the work from there. The Star is a nurturer, a caretaker, a major support in like feeling out this new iteration of self. So there's invitations to radically care for the self when the Star comes up. Knowing that tending ourselves, really working that foundation, really honoring our nervous system and doing the important work of nurturing and tending and listening to our nervous system, that is like some of the most important work that we can do, that is the work that is necessary to allow us to shine like a star. This card is supportive in regeneration and healing and rest, tender, loving care. And it's in the lesson spot, so we might have some opportunities to really exercise the Star, to welcome the Star into our world and how we're showing up. And then given all of that, our anchor for the week, 2 came out. The Queen of Cups along with the Ace of Wands. So cardinal water energy along with fire energy. So our invitation is to anchor in with these energies, to embody what it means to be the Queen of Cups, and to step forward, embracing the wand suit, embracing our fire in some new way. The Queen of Cups is all about the willingness and ability to go deep, deep within without retreating. Right? It's like empowered. It's about going within in an empowered way, not an escapist, like retreating kind of way. The Queen of Cups knows how to have a deep and intimate relationship with her cups, with her water, with her emotions, her intuition. She is informed by those things without letting herself get washed away by their force. When this card comes up, It's an invitation to tend to your sweetheart like your life depends on it. A similar message to the star. And then kind of like a secondary anchor for the week, I guess. This is the first time we've had 2 anchors in all 23 episodes so far, but we have the Ace of Wands as well, which is an invitation to embody wand energy, fire energy, to work with it, engage with it. And fire energy is about connecting with and taking hold of like the flame that's in you. Fire is our passion, our motivation, our creativity. And with the ace, it's an invitation to choose yourself, ourselves. For each of us to choose ourselves. I'm not sure how to say that. You are invited to choose yourself, to connect with and take hold of your fire, to step into a sense of power. A sense of power over your energy and how you're using your energy. Reclaiming your power, reclaiming your fire, and learning how to use it in a way that is you, in a way that is aligned and helpful. Ultimately, this card is about choosing yourself and how we go about doing that. So, overall, present for us is an invitation to release shame and allow ourselves to be supported. And that's supported by our deep trust in ourselves. Our lesson this week is in prioritizing tender, loving care, tending the nervous system, and our anchor this week, the Queen of Cups, along with the Ace of Wands, inviting us not to shy away from our deep emotional center and reminding ourselves to align with our fire, embrace our power in a really full way. Okay, I hope that feels helpful for the week ahead. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out, I think. Moving into the expansive astrology for the week, we're talking Libra, we're talking balance. Today, I'm going to share a whole lot of ways we can embrace dichotomy in life, live in the grayness, find center when we're uncentered, and embrace the dialectics in life. So, starting off with the opposite of all of that, the opposite of balance is instability. It's extremes. So let's dive in there. Let's chat about spectrums and polarities. I find it really useful to examine nearly anything and everything in terms of where it falls on a spectrum. Spectrums exist everywhere. And it is especially important to acknowledge and embrace spectrums, especially when you're feeling very all or nothing, when you're in some sort of an extreme, when you're prone to black and white thinking. You can know when you're in that place, when you're in kind of an extreme way of thinking, when you catch your narratives being very all or nothing. So in my work, I'm always kind of being nitpicky about our narratives because it's so important and so telling. Things like, it's always so depressing in the winter. Today completely sucks. I have been anxious nonstop for weeks on end. I always hit every single train. The barista never gets it right. It always rains on moving day. We do this all the time. Catch yourself when you're using all or nothing language. Words like always and never. Totally and completely. Anything that's like very extreme, all-encompassing, and all language. Learn how to catch it. Identify when you're using that kind of language, or when your brain, your inner narratives are using that kind of language. And then see if you can evaluate how true that truly is. This does not mean invalidating yourself, though. Some days you need to be a little dramatic and complain that everything does in fact totally suck. And sometimes it's true that you've been feeling nothing but anxiety for weeks on end. Like, we can go through those periods, and those feelings are there, they're valid and worth expressing. I'll never stop you from expressing that sort of thing, right? And it's very important to recognize where that begins and ends. Find exceptions to the extremes, and don't be afraid to acknowledge them. Don't be afraid to acknowledge the good. So while it might feel true that you've been nothing but anxious for weeks on end, is there any way that you can still share that experience or validate that experience and put language to that experience? Is there any way to still hold the truth and the heaviness of that experience while also loosening up on the language just a little bit? Have there been no pockets of relief? Would it be more accurate to say the anxiety is so intense that it is the only thing that I can remember feeling? I don't know. Using more accurate language that's a little looser on the all or nothing language is helpful. Because here's the thing. Our brains are quite comfortable in polarities and extremes, because in those places there is very little square footage that they have to manage. Right? The more black and white, the easier for our brains to quickly identify, to quickly judge and understand and know what it's working with. The more ambiguity, the more grayness, the more threatened the brain is, the more work it has to do. But there is so much more to be experienced in those spaces between the black and white. Andre Gide once said, "The color of truth is gray." That feels very Libra to me. This is a strength of airy Libra, to be able to see all perspectives and all sorts of potential, to make connections and initiate us into beautiful things. So that's part of the practice of this season, and bringing it back to spectrums. Considering different spectrums in life, different polarities in life, can help us strengthen the ability. So begin noticing and embracing. I have like a list of a few polarities or spectrums. Feel free to kind of sit with whatever comes up, whatever additional spectrums or polarities may come up for you that are present in your mind. But if you feel called to, maybe write these down or write down your own and just start to really examine how they play out for you, how you can embrace the polarity, and how you can start to practice to like explore the center world between these different topics or feelings or states of being or themes that I'm going to name here. First is the polarity between angry and happy. How many things can exist? How many nuanced experiences can exist between those two, angry and happy? The spectrum from hopeful to hopeless. From passive to aggressive. From empowered to disempowered. The spectrum from being in a state of being to being in a state of doing. Logic versus emotions. My needs versus your needs. Feeling outgoing and feeling shy. Comfort versus anxiety. From fear to love. These are just a few, but learning to slow down time and exist in the in-between of these things, rather than just like whiplashing back and forth from one to the other and then back to the other again. And like this kind of like pendulum effect. This like we have a tendency to kind of swing back and forth, especially on our quest to finding equilibrium. It's common to kind of swing from one extreme to the other, and part of like the work, the invitation, the alchemy is slowing down that process and experiencing the in-between and letting things be more ambiguous than that. Letting things be more ambiguous than that. One key skill to achieving this is learning to hold both and when you find yourself in times of either or. This helps you find your center, find balance, find grayness. So like remembering that you can both have a really difficult day and enjoy yourself after all. You can both want to help and say no. You can both want to be intimate and feel protective or afraid. And with that example, I like that example with Libra season, where we're also evaluating how we're showing up in relationships, and, you know, with the tarot reading earlier, showing up with the Six of Swords. That truth that we can both desire deep intimacy and feel very protective or afraid. I think that's a good example of kind of illustrating why it is so important to honor both the one and the other. To hold that dichotomy, to be in both the desire to experience intimacy and the need to feel protective or afraid. We don't want to let one or the other of those, go, right? We don't want to dismiss or devalue one or the other of those. They're both very important. They're both very deep needs. The need to be witnessed and held intimately, and the need to be protected. Both are worth holding, and both can be held in this very gray space, in this very balanced space. So if Libra is like a master of comfort and balance, let's examine that. Where does your comfort zone exist? Where are you most comfortable? Where do you hang out in polarities and resist ambiguity, resist the gray? Are there any areas where things are certainly out of balance and you're neglecting to pay attention to this for comfort's sake? Do you think maybe you can expand your comfort zone to include more and more and more and even more? We do this by embracing the gray. We do this by learning that there's more than just the black and the white, the this side or the that side. There's so much more to life. And when we expand our comfort zone, when we learn to slow down time and alchemize our experience and be in that grayness, be in that spirit experience, in that in-between of I am desiring and experiencing vulnerability and intimacy with you, and I am also feeling protective of my heart and a little afraid. Slowing down that time between feeling empowered and disempowered, finding grayness there, finding ways to work with the in-between there to keep ourselves in balance. Practice placing yourself on spectrums as you go about your life, and see if you can just be with the potential at any given time that you can shift a little more one way or the other to find yourself in more grayness, more balance. Observe with curiosity and choose empowering behaviors that keep you feeling balanced. And when you're able to step out of your own perspective and observe what is unfolding outside of yourself, and then place yourself on the spectrum, kind of identifying where you are existing in relation to everything else, that helps us to better understand ourselves and our experience and our responses, and then furthermore, our environment's responses to us. It helps that process so much. And then, like, related to last week when we were talking about relationships and how we get our needs met in relationships, and how we like manage a sense of dependency, like finding the balance, finding the grayness where we're holding and appreciating what we have without grasping. And this is the work, this is the energy that helps us learn how to cope with ambivalence, how to cope with the unknown, how to cope with injustice, coping with being unable to affect change, and having an ability to see all perspectives, to see the potential, and to see the truth. That's all I have for you for the expansive astrology this week. I hope it feels like a really juicy way to round out Libra season and all the gifts and medicine and magic that Libra brings. Now, for your astrological forecast for the week ahead, I'm going to share some of the more major transits coming up this week. Not to overly structure our lives around these things, but more to inspire how we're showing up and to observe how these things may play out for us. It is said that when the moon is void in the sky, when it is between signs in the sky, that it's a good time to be a little more passive, to lighten up on like the productivity expectations and to really just kind of turn inward. First up, Mercury entered Libra Monday evening. So I want to chat about that a little bit because Mercury is the planet of communication and like self-expression, and we're in Libra season. So we are invited to explore our communication through a lens of Libra, looking at how our communication is influenced by Libra and how our communication can support what Libra is here to teach us and what Libra is here to support. So I want to remind you some of the empowered ways that Libra can show up and some of the disempowered ways that Libra can show up. And then you can kind of like keep an eye on yourself and keep an eye on your own communication over the next couple of weeks while Mercury is moving through Libra. Keep an eye on these empowered expressions and these disempowered expressions and see if you can stay as empowered and charming as possible. Speaking of charming, Libra, that's one of Libra's strengths, right? Is Libra can be very charming, a brilliant host, a brilliant friend. Libra fosters harmony and balance, justice. It's the peacemaker. Libra is optimistic, diplomatic, open-minded and adaptable, creative, connective. And disempowered expression of Libra energy comes off as self-indulgent, defensive, avoidant, complacent, inactive. Disempowered Libra can be a bit of a control freak, a little fickle, a little self-centered, and like overly dependent. So just some things to keep in mind and stay aware of in our own communication. Now, Wednesday, October 12th, the moon is void of course, starting at 5:42 in the evening until Thursday the 13th, when it goes direct in Gemini at 1:08 a.m. Saturday the 15th, the moon is void of course from 12:11 a.m. for exactly 12 hours, which is kind of funny. It enters Cancer at 12:11 p.m. Monday the 17th, we have the waning half moon at 1:15 p.m. And then the moon goes void of course from 4:56 p.m. until it goes direct Tuesday the 18th, early in the morning. It goes direct in Leo at 12:45 a.m. Next week, I'll share with you episode 24, which is a special episode. We will be examining the transition from Libra to Scorpio, and we'll have the very first Expansive Astrology podcast Q&A. I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that there will be a chance to win a free tarot reading from me at the end, and this is it. If you head on over to the Expansive Astrology podcast Instagram page at Expansive Astrology, you will find a pinned post inviting you to ask questions about pretty much anything. I'd love to hear your questions about the transition from Libra to Scorpio, any lingering questions or things that you'd like my insight on in regards to Libra energy, anything you'd like to know about my own witchy practice, my own practice with the moon phases, anything you'd like to know about the seasons to come, pretty much anything at all. Submit a question or 2 or 3 if you'd like and you will be entered to win a free tarot reading from me. Also, before I go, let me remind you of your standing invitation to my moon circles. The next moon meetup is Sunday, October 23rd, in preparation for the new moon in Scorpio. These happen in person and online. You can find more information on my website. And if you're interested in supporting the podcast, if you're interested in an all-access pass to moon meetups, if you would like to join the Self-Care Witch Inner Circle, which also includes a 5-card spread for each month ahead, consider signing up for the Meet Your Magic monthly membership. I would so love to have you over there. I'm so thankful for the members who have signed up. It's such a great way to support the podcast, to support my work here, and a great way for me to connect with you more further on a regular basis. And that's what I'm all about. I love it. On that note, that is all I have for you. As always, I hope that this episode was helpful and anchoring, inspiring for you. Please never hesitate to let me know. Never hesitate to reach out. Until next time, take really good care of yourself. And I look forward to hearing your questions for next week's episode. I'll see you then. Take care. Bye. Now, before you go, let me keep your ear for just a moment. This week's episode is brought to you by www.theselfcarewitch.com, my bread and butter, where you can find more information on my current courses, offerings, and other fun ways to connect with myself and yourself. If you enjoyed this episode and you dig what I'm doing here, please subscribe to the podcast, rate it, and leave a review. It helps so much. And if you'd like to connect with me, head to theselfcarewitch.com. I'd truly love to hear from you. Until next time, take care.